Hi, my name is Ariel Abdullah, and this is my oral project on the life and times of Frederick Douglass. Born into slavery and escaping at the age of 20, Frederick Douglass managed to become a world-renowned anti-slavery activist, prominent American abolitionist, human rights and women's rights activist, author, orator, and social reformer. As a slave, Douglass learned basic reading and writing skills and was even hired to teach other slaves to read. Upon escape, Douglass was later adopted as a regular anti-slavery lecturer at local abolitionist meetings, and eventually got written into the William Lloyd Garrison weekly journal, The Liberator. Douglass proceeds to share his experiences in his autobiographies, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave in 1845, My Bondage and My Freedom in 1855, and Douglass published Life and Times of Frederick Douglass in 1881. Douglass achieved fame through his persuasive writings and speeches which provided African Americans with the voice of hope. His findings aided Abraham Lincoln's decision in making the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. Douglass was also appointed to several political positions after the Civil War. May 6, 1845, Frederick Douglass delivers a speech in New York City about his early life and experiences as a slave, in the address titled My Slave Experience in Maryland. This is believed to be the first time he publicly expressed specific facts about his life as an enslaved person. Ethos is the establishment of an author's credibility and authority to write about a topic. Frederick Douglass begins his speech by confessing the lack of knowledge in public speaking due to his early life, which refers to what he learned as a slave. Beginning with this fact already deems him trustworthy, relatable, and credible. Before he reaches the height of his speech, he confesses to the audience that he did not grow up in the worst conditions, but he reassures them, gains their trust by promising them that his experiences will cause discomfort. Pathos is the author's appeal to the audience's emotions. Douglass describes his experiences vividly so that the audience may feel indignity of being a slave. He uses ethos in relations to pathos throughout the speech by sharing his perception of slavery with degrading experiences. This allows the audience to further imagine conditions he endured and develop an emotional tie as well as an undoubtable trust in his knowledge. Douglass creates sympathy for the slave as well as the slave master. Antagony is a figure of speech where a negative point is balanced with a positive one. He uses this rhetorical device along with pathos to display remorse for the white man. He simply explains the torture committed by a slave master in a merciless tone, but describes their actions to be involuntary, ultimately creating a forgiving approach for the rest of the speech. An anecdote is a brief story often used in argumentative text to prove a point. Douglass illustrates slavery's immorality by including several short stories in his speech. This anecdote demonstrates that slavery places no value on a person's humanity, nor are they deserving of justice. Irony is a rhetorical device that reveals unfairness of a particular situation. Douglass uses irony in this anecdote to expose the flaws in the logic of slavery. A slave is shot down not for the offense he has committed, but for the example that is needed to be set in order to keep slaves from apparently uprising or overthrowing their masters. This further enhances the uses of pathos and introduces logos into his speech. Douglass uses logos here to logically explain what slaves cannot do. He also furthers his use of irony. In this story, if a slave was not shot down, it would have caused an uprising of slaves, but Douglass explains the inconsistency of this reasoning. He reprimands the audience by justifying their ideas of slavery. He repeats their concerning questions with logical intellectual answers that appeal to the reasoning of slavery and the mindset of the slaves as well as white Americans. This creates a feeling of guilt and causes the audience to be uncomfortable, furthering pathos. Frederick Douglass overall gave an effectively persuasive speech. In the end, he summarizes his literal illustrations with the use of rhetorical questions. He emphasizes the power non-slaves have and their ability to abolish slavery and begs for their support. Douglass elegantly represented the voice of all slaves in America, providing gratitude to the president and those who support the abolishment of slavery. Along with the physical fight for freedom, Frederick Douglass's legacy leads a literal fight for African Americans everywhere. Douglass believed that slaves have earned the right to citizenship and often demonstrated that through his empowering speeches. While persuading white America that African Americans were deserving of rights, he also made it his interest to empower and create hope for them. His oratory and writing skills conclusively led to the enhancement of the Emancipation Proclamation and the ratification of the 13th Amendment in the U.S. Constitution. He then proceeded to act as an advocate for civil rights, also supporting women. His work has been adopted into African American history, American cultural history, and contemporary literature and politics. His speeches and publications are considered important to the slave narrative tradition and are primary insights on the conditions of slavery. His life has inspired the lives of many, like Barack Obama, who would have not taken the role of our first African American president of the United States of America on November 2008 if it weren't for the influence of Frederick Douglass. Thank you.